Karma here with your July Astrology cheat codes. If you are here, you recognize that we are astrologically influenced by the planets and stars. And with that understanding of how the energy influences us, we can better navigate life's obstacles. So welcome to the club, and let's take an overall look at what happens in July. All right, so in July, we have several planets going into retrograde. We have Neptune, Saturn going into retrograde in the realm of Aries and will retrograde back to Pisces. We have Mercury going into retrograde in the realm of Leo. We have Venus transitioning into both Cancer and Gemini. We have a Capricorn full moon, and we have a Leo new moon. And additionally, Uranus crosses into Gemini. So there's a lot happening in this month, especially with this retrograde energy, because many of these things are aspecting back to Neptune and Saturn. So there's an emphasis here on lessons, okay? And when Saturn hits retrograde, it can become like a pretty ugly energy. Saturn retrograde energy can sometimes be a little funky, okay? Because Saturn is the planet of karma. Saturn is also the planet of lessons, right? So as it goes into retrograde, it makes you retrospective of the lessons that you need to learn. And sometimes that can be kind of hard. That's a hard energy, okay? That's a hard energy to navigate. So, Saturn is going to be in retrograde for a minute. All right. So this is just the beginning, but it will cross back into Pisces, so it won't be as active in that Aries energy, but nonetheless, still lessons on lessons, okay? Lessons on lessons. All right, so I'm not going to go into deep analysis of each individual transit. I will give you the energy of the transit as it is transitioning into whatever is happening. However, I will create separate videos for all of the things that are happening in July so that we can get a more deep dive look at what it is everyone is supposed to be working on. But this will just be a summary of what's going on in July. So let's talk about the signs. If you are looking at this from the perspective of your rising sign, okay, this will be most accurate for your rising sign. This is because it encompasses your horizon of your life, okay? Your rising sign, your ascendant sign, the horizon of your life. This encompasses everything, okay? If you're looking at this from your sun perspective, your sun sign, this will be in relation to your ego, your attention, your focus, okay? If you are looking at this from your moon sign, this will be in relation to your emotions, your instincts, and your intuition. Okay, so with that, let's jump into the individual signs. So Aries, we're going to sum it up real quick, just the hot topic of it all. July is going to be a busy month for everyone, okay? So there is going to be retrogrades happening in your first and your fifth house. Your first house of Aries, because you're an Aries rising, which holds Neptune and Saturn, they will be going into retrograde. And then your fifth house of Leo, where Mercury resides, Mercury will also be going into retrograde in Leo. Uranus will cross into your third house of Gemini, so there's some changes here around your mentality. There are also some larger themes at play, okay, because we have that first house, which is sextile to your 11th house, where Pluto is sitting. Then we have aspects, trine aspects, sextile aspects back to that first house as well. So there is a heavy emphasis here on lessons and things happening behind the scenes with that Neptune energy, or secrets or lessons around your self-sabotage, right? And as Uranus crosses into Gemini, that creates a sextile back to that first house house. And then as the new moon happens in the first degrees of Leo, it then creates trine energy back to that first house. And at that point, Uranus and Neptune will be in retrograde. Okay, so there's an emphasis here around lessons, things happening behind the scenes, things that might trigger your ego or change your perspective, a change of thinking, right? And this may be in the realm of your thought process, your first house, which is yourself, your ego, your pride, your focus, then your fifth house, which is your self-expression. Right, so there are themes in July around that energy. So let's go into detail the dates of everything. So on 4th of July, July 4th, Venus enters Gemini. That is an energy around your thought process, your flexibility in harmony or things you want to create, abundance, beauty, art. There's a flexibility in mind that you'll be working on within that energy. And while Venus crosses into the third house, it does come into it will have just left a conjunction with Uranus, which is sitting in Taurus, which will shortly transition over into Gemini as well. So it's coming off of a conjunction with Uranus and Taurus. So there's something here that would have been brought to your attention. And now we're working on harmony or peace. And this could be using the tools of having a flexible mind, being flexible in nature. And then with Venus crossing into the third house, and then it then becomes sextile to Neptune and Saturn in your first house. So there's an emphasis here of opportunities, right? These are lessons around our thought process. This is a lesson around, because again, Saturn rules lessons, it rules karma, the efforts you put in, the results you get out. There's an emphasis here on, with that conjunction between Saturn and Neptune, habits of self-sabotage. This could be you going for your dreams and what that looks like as it relates to yourself, and you having the flexibility of mind to adjust, right? Maybe start new, think about new creative ideas or opportunities that will help you attain some sort of goal. This could be around the sensitivity that you have in the things that you create, and you thinking about like what it is that you need to create. So there's an emphasis here between your third and your first house around flexibility in your perspective or your focus and the things that you create. Additionally, on July 4th, Neptune goes into retrograde. Okay, so Neptune is in your first house of Aries, and this is around your sensitivity. This is the hidden parts of you. This is your subconscious. This is your hidden desires, your fantasies, your illusions, your delusions, your ways of self-sabotage. And within your first house, this is like the actions, right? How you move forward, how quickly or assertive you are within that realm of your life. It goes into retrograde. Okay, so when planets go into retrograde, there is an emphasis on restructure, rebuilding, reflection. I like to call it the triple R's, right? So there's an emphasis here on you to look at your actions as it relates, or how quickly you move on something, how assertive you are within the realm of yourself, your ego, your pride, like how you react to that and how you fall into your self-sabotaging ways. As Neptune goes into retrograde, that's what Neptune will work on. And again, I will do deeper dive videos. There's a lot happening in July, so I'm going to try to get through it all on each sign, and I don't want to go too deep into detail because there will be other videos that will explain the exact energy. All right, on July 7th, Uranus enters Gemini. So Uranus is the planet of sudden change. This is originality, rebellion, reformation, and it basically like destroys the old and brings the new. Okay, so as Uranus crosses into Gemini, Venus just crossed into Gemini days later, right? And again, Uranus will then, it already is sextile. It's in an applying sextile to Saturn and Neptune in the first house. And now Neptune is already in retrograde. Okay, so there's an emphasis here around sudden changes as it relates to how your perspective, your flexibility of your mind, And these themes will help you to understand, you know, how it is that you navigate within life by way of your ego, and how you kind of self-sabotage, or how you kind of fall into illusion or delusion, or you go after your desires and your fantasies. This is kind of like exploring your triggers a little bit, and how that impacts, how your ego impacts that. Uranus entering into the third house of Gemini. This speaks to you really mentally understanding or reflecting opportunities that come up to help you understand or reflect on that retrograde energy. Okay, or that retrograde energy, there's something that comes back that then helps you reflect on your thought process and maybe work to change it. Okay. On July 10th, there's a full moon in Capricorn. So the Capricorn new moon was on January 11th. There would have been something there that happened, and this is just something, and again, I'm going to create a video for all of this. This is something that will give you some clarity. So this will be in your 10th house of Capricorn. This is around your ambitions, your goals, your achievements, your accomplishments. Okay. And this is the moon. This is your emotions around this. So this could be something, you know, emotionally charged that pops up in your life that gives you a little bit more clarity. The Capricorn new moon was in your 3rd house, right? So there's a lot of activity happening in that 3rd house. There's a lot of activity happening in that 1st house, right? So this is a change in your perspective, a change in your perception, right? A change in your thought process or how you communicate, right? There's an emphasis here, as you know, we get all the way around that circle, right? And we get to the 10th house. This is like your ambitions, your goals. Your thought process was highlighted at the beginning of this journey 6 months ago on January 11th. And now this is going to show you how your actions or your behaviors have impacted what it is that you are trying to accomplish here. On July 13th, Saturn goes into retrograde in the 1st house of Aries. Okay, so now both Neptune and Saturn are in retrograde in that 1st house, and Saturn is the planet of lessons. Saturn is the teacher. Saturn is that strict father. Saturn is the ruler of karma, the effort you put in and the results you get back off of that. Okay, as Saturn goes retrograde, it is sextile to Pluto in the 11th house of Aquarius, which has already been in retrograde. So there's an emphasis here on some sort of transformation that's happening. And again, when a planet goes into retrograde, it's the reflection, restructure, and repair. There's an emphasis here on something popping, right? Retrograde is not going to pull something into your life. Is just a planet, is the energy is now changing, right? However, this sextile, the sextile has existed for a long minute. All 3 of these planets are outer planets which move at a slower pace. So Saturn has been sextile to Pluto. Saturn is in conjunction with Neptune in that 1st house of Aries. So again, there's an emphasis here on some sort of change around your community, the overall change in your life, Aries, around your community, around your friendships, the bonds that you make, your self-expression in your community or your external world, right? So there's an emphasis here on some sort of change happening there for you. In this sextile energy, again, has existed. So there are many things that are popping up within this theme. Okay. And again, we'll go into the Saturn retrograde when I create the video. All right, so Mercury goes into retrograde on July 18th, and that is in your 5th house of Leo. Okay, so that is the house of self-expression, how you express yourself, your creativity. This is casual sex, casual dating. This is, you know, children, entrepreneurships, hobbies, fun and games. Okay, so there is an emphasis here around Mercury. Aries, you know, this is the house of dating. Okay, and they say Mercury retrograde gets people to reflection. Remember the triple R's, reflect. So this could be for some people from the past that you dated, popping back up again. Okay, and then on top of that, Mercury in retrograde is sextile to Venus. in the third house of Gemini. So there's heavy emphasis here on your thought process around how you express yourself as well. Or this could be, you know, people that you've dated, people that you've had casual sex with coming back into the picture. You might feel them pulling on your mental energy. You're thinking about them. You guys are pulling on each other's energy. This is about curiosity of your love interest, and you really like thinking about that. And remember, the third house is also sextile to that first house, which is now in full retrograde. So this talks about things from the past, situationships, possibly, you know, hobbies or things that you've not finished, things that you have not really put effort into, or things that don't really put effort into you that you are continuously wasting your energy with. This is speaking to changing your perspective about that. On the 22nd, Sun enters Leo. Okay, so it'll be Leo season starting the 22nd of July. And at this point, the Sun is going to be pretty close to Jupiter. I've talked about this several times over in other videos, right? This is a combustion, and that Jupiter energy is, you know, you might feel a little bit emotionally charged in this particular moment, you know, between the 22nd and the 26th. However, with the Sun entering Leo in your 5th house, right? Again, this is the house of self-expression. You got the 1, 3, 5 houses, your pride, your ego, your focus, the flexibility of your mind and the things that you create in your self-expression, your fun, your hobbies, what it is that you do, right? That is a heavy emphasis of July for you. So the Sun will be sextile to that 3rd house, again, where Uranus is sitting and also where Venus is sitting. Okay, so again, sudden changes. There's heavy emphasis because Venus rules relationships. There's heavy emphasis on situationships, people that you've dated coming back from the past. Again, retrograde energy. So heavy emphasis. The Sun enters Leo. The Sun enters that 5th house of expression. The Sun enters Leo. Leo is about drama. Okay, so there's an emphasis here, heavy, juicy, fat emphasis on your love life, how you think about it, the things that you create within that realm, or entrepreneurship, whatever it is for you. Then on July 24th, there is a Leo new moon. Okay, with this Leo new moon, this is happening in the 1st degrees of that 5th house. So surprise, surprise, the Sun is right there. And now we have this new moon hitting that energy. So there is something here that is highlighted. All right. And then next year, when the Leo full moon comes into play, we'll have more development on what that is. But there is something here that is highlighted. And again, the 5th house represents your self-expression, your creativity, your fun, and your entertainment. Okay, so that Leo new moon in the 5th house is sextile again to Venus in that 3rd house, Uranus in that 3rd house, and then also trine to Saturn and Neptune in retrograde in the 1st house. So there's something here that might feel a little funky that pops up. It changes your perspective. And as you work your way through the next 6 months, you know, the energy will progress and you'll see something different at the end of this 6-month moon cycle with whatever pops up here on the 24th. And then last but not least, Venus enters Cancer. Okay, so this is a very nurturing type of energy. And this is the last day of the month. Okay, for the whole month, Venus is going to be in Gemini, which is like thinking about having flexibility of mind, curiosity around, you know, your creative endeavors or your relationships, love, abundance, harmony, right? And then right on the last day of July, Venus enters into Cancer. Okay, and then it starts to become a nurturing energy. What it is that you nurture, what you put your nurturing energy towards, you know, what it is that you're sensitive to between harmony, love, or whatever, you know, all of the things that Venus rules. This could be your moodiness around this energy as well. Now, as Venus enters into that 4th house, it will then become square to Neptune and Saturn in that 1st house. Okay, this will be in the 1st degrees, and this will last, you know, probably like a week or so, a week and a half, because Venus moves relatively quickly. And there's an emphasis here on, again, energy popping up around how nurturing you are, with could be within your relationships, how you nurture your creative endeavors, the moodiness you hold within that energy, and how that plays a part in your pride and your ego and also your focus, right? This is square energy, so this is Cancer and Aries energy, doesn't really mesh. So it will evoke some sort of thought process, because again, we got the 3 R's in retrograde: reflection, restructure, repair. Okay, so with that, right, that is your whole month of July, Aries. Again, this energy will focus heavily on your pride and your ego and what you focus on, especially with that retrograde energy in that first house. And it will focus on your mentality, the curiosity or flexibility you hold there. And it also will focus on the things you choose to create, the entertainment you choose for yourself, the things you choose to do for yourself, entrepreneurial endeavors. Okay, Aries? I hope this message reaches you well.